my children, and it's one of the largest urban parks within a city in our nation, and I'm very proud of that. However, if you look at it from the standpoint of this, the Metropolitan Planning Organization that's made up of our city representatives and local government chose to move forward with Trans Mountain. They requested the funds from TxDOT. The stars aligned. Dallas was told no for the funding, and we were given that amount of money to move forward with the project that we said we wanted. Then, when we magically got the money, we decided we wanted to change our mind. Too many people, from my standpoint, keep saying, we're constantly ignored by the rest of the state of Texas. No one wants to pay attention to El Paso. Well, when you behave irresponsibly like that, it's going to continue to happen. Second of all, we can sit here and pretend we're Austin and say, no bill. If we don't build, they won't come. Guess what? They're already here. We've had a tremendous amount of influx from Juarez and a tremendous amount of influx from Fort Bliss. And our infrastructure does not serve our community right now. We need to expand Trans Mountain Road. Another issue is magic marketing. Everyone says, oh wow, we're going to trash the mountains. It stops at the state park boundary. It won't trash your mountains. What it'll do is actually create a 4-lane freeway with theater roads on either side and hike and bike trails. It's like cake and eat it too. We get traffic relief, which is a constant issue for everyone right now, because everyone is frustrated with the gridlock that we have that's about to occur. So this is an alternative where we can relieve our traffic issues. We can use it with funding that was given to us by the state of Texas, money that we asked for, and we can help better our constituents by providing the right amount of infrastructure that they need.
Okay, Trans Mountain. Wow, what a big issue. Okay, where do we start? The plan entails this. Okay, the plan entails that. Has anybody been out to the new Federal Freeway? It's kind of a double layer kind of thing. Well, that's kind of what we're proposing for Trans Mountain. The way it's proposed is we're going to build an inner loop on the freeway and kind of pretty much carry it over as a double decker about a mile or two up to Trans Mountain, and then have overpasses for Wrestler and a new existing road called El Paseo. That's the plan. Now, the issue is this, okay? When TxDOT first granted the money, they were presented with studies saying that in 20 or 15 to 20 years, we're going to have traffic of about 50 to 60,000 cars per day. Now it's saying that a new study, because that was a 10-year-old study, saying that we're going to have 20 or 30,000 cars per day. So it's kind of a misunderstanding there. That being said, the issue at hand is, what do we do? Okay, well, do we build this double-layer freeway and overpasses and ruin one of the last bargaining chips that we have for the city of El Paso? I mean, right now we have a policy where we're kind of bribing businesses to come here, and this is one of our biggest tools, that we just have beautiful scenery. Now, building this, some people argue that it's going to develop the land, and it's going to ruin our vistas, and it's going to create traffic. Well, there's two things that I know for certain. One, you cannot build a freeway, and you may or may not have traffic for 20 or 30 years. Or you can build a freeway, and I can guarantee that you're going to have traffic, because studies have shown over any metropolitan area, no matter where it is, you build a freeway, you're going to increase traffic. That's just a fact. Now, as a man of science, and spending many years in the lab, I can tell you that you have to look at every single variable and scrutinize everything to its final detail. That being said, I'm not a man that's not willing to compromise. And I think that's the issue that we have here. Tell me if you've heard this before, okay? When it comes to certain issues that happen in El Paso. You have a certain amount of money and you hear this: if you don't use the money now, you're gonna lose it. You've heard that before? I've heard that before. And that's how things happen in this town, okay? You get something, you put it together as quickly as you can, and then you go and then you start getting people into a sense of urgency, a crisis. You have to get something done, and things pass without a whole lot of scrutiny. So I want to tell you, first and foremost, I am not for sale. I'm not gonna rush into a hasty decision for a threat of losing money. That being said, the issue that we need to address here is compromise. Plain and simple. It's not going to be, it's my way or no build at all. Okay? If the overpasses are going to be ruining views, Because I agree we need to expand the road, then maybe we can look into building underpasses. So the new road can go under the current street rather than going over it. These are right, this is just common sense. It's common sense. You have to compromise in order to make the city run successful. So something like this is something that plans to put a lot of man hours and to address in thorough detail when it comes to my desk. Thank you.
Jorge? Jorge,
Thank you, Courtney. I want to say that on the Trans Mountain issue, it's a shame that we're in the position that we're having to discuss with the issue of Trans Mountain is because the ineffectiveness of the city council takes force to stand on the issue. We know that the property values in El Paso are dependent on the base of the mountain, and if the base of the mountain is destroyed, then so would the property values of El Paso. So it seems that if El Paso is going to take a compromised position on the mountain, then those individuals who choose to sit in a compromised position on the mountain, the city council shouldn't sit there. Thank you.
Courtney gets the next question. In reference to the recent freeze, what is your opinion of El Paso Water Utilities and El Paso Electric Company offsetting the expenses they incurred with rate hikes, presumably under the guise of avoiding utility loss in the future?
Well, once again, I have my economist hat on, and I have a different perspective on this, and this is my perspective. El Paso Electric is a monopoly, and last summer, El Paso Electric went to our city government and said that they needed to incur a rate hike because they had been operating at the rates had been frozen, and they had been operating at a loss, and they needed to recoup those funds. They said they needed $50 million to do it. City council whittled them down to $17 million. I went to two of our city reps and I asked them just two simple questions. I said, one, can you tell me why you did that? And two, first of all, I said, can you tell me why you did that? Well, what do you mean, why did we do that? They were operating at a loss. They needed to recoup those costs. And we had to work with them. Okay. Did you bother to pull the financials on the company? Well, what do you mean by that, Courtney? I said, well, did you pull the financials on the company? Well, obviously you're going somewhere with this, so why don't you tell me where you're going? I said, okay. If you would have pulled the public financials on El Paso Electric, you would have realized that they were the best performing utility in the nation, and in fact, outperformed the S&P 500. Now, is that a business that's operating at a loss? Absolutely not. What they're doing is taking funding and off the backs of our ratepayers and passing it directly on to their shareholders without investing a dime in infrastructure. And that's what happened to us a month ago. So what I would do is I would bring the people to the table, and I would say, it's time to renegotiate. It's time for some competition this time, and it's time for us to get fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Well, okay, so the big freeze is what they're calling it now. You know what? That was a really tough time for a lot of El Pasoans, and from what I understand, it was a pretty hard time for the electric company. But I don't consider that a justification for lack of a better word, for their incompetence in essentially handling this crisis to take it out on the ratepayer. I mean, you're a business. This is what you do. This is why we pay you that monthly bill every single month, to make sure stuff like this doesn't happen. Now, I understand, okay? We live in El Paso, and we have great weather, and this is not something that happens very often. Okay? So I can understand they may have not been prepared for it. Okay? The issue here is not whether or not they were prepared. The issue here is how they handle it afterwards. And the fact that they handled it, as best as they could, and then they're going to justify that saying, well, look, we're operating at a loss, we need to have a rate. No, I don't buy that. Okay, that's your job. If you have to take a loss for a quarter because you couldn't handle your only business, then I'm sorry, but I can't see myself saying everybody pay more to this billion-dollar industry because they couldn't handle their business on one or two particular days. So that being said, I think that they need to invest some of their own money, some of their own resources to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. But it doesn't have to be on the back of the ratepayers. They have to take their own responsibility to make sure this doesn't happen again. It's like me running a business and charging you because my lights went out. or because I don't have any inventory, I have to say, okay, give me more money so I can go out and get inventory. It doesn't work that way. I have to provide that service and then sell it to my consumer. That's business. That's the way it works. So, no, I don't agree with the rate hikes that they're proposing.
Okay, Jorge?
Thank you, Vicky. We know that individuals who seek public office often seek public office because they like to enjoy speaking, and oftentimes when they speak, they really aren't saying anything except speaking. And we know that the issue with regards to the utilities, if one has to know the history of what utilities in El Paso are, we know that the water that is owned by the city wasn't necessarily the case. At one time, the water was independent electric company, but because of difficulties that the water company was having, it came in that the city was going to purchase the water company. Has the water company been any better managed under the offices of the city than it would be independently? One would have to leave that open question. But as far as the electric company, I don't even know what issue has to do with anybody wanting to purchase that company. Why would anybody want to do anything like that? I believe in the Eisenhower years, there was discussion about taking some of the electrical outlet that was being provided by TVA and making it independent. So why would we want to backtrack on where we stand with respect to the functioning of the utilities as they function now? We also know that the dilemma that the ballot process wasn't necessarily because of any difficulty the utility was having with respect to its ability to provide service to the city. The utilities, what they provide is service. It isn't necessarily a given. Fortunately for us, we've had individuals who have the capacity to think the problem out, and because of thinking that they have experience, and because of thoughtfulness, we now have the ability to turn the lights on, turn the water on. Thank you.
All right, Sergio?
Well, the public utilities. First of all, I pay my utility bills on time, like all of you. Never been late. That's besides the point. You have a corporation here that's outperforming the S&P, investing 80%. Paying 80% of its profits in dividends, and leaving the rest to who knows what they're doing with it. Really, the point of the story is that that money needs to be reinvested into our infrastructure here for electricity. Without that investment in infrastructure, the same thing may happen again. We don't know when another cold snap may come. I know there's other places in the United States where if this were to happen, it would be absurd because they're prepared for this kind of stuff. And I believe that utilities should have the same amount of preparedness no matter where they're located at. Thank you.
Okay, Ernesto, you're first on the next question. Please give us your opinion of how and if the police department should process law violators who are in the United States illegally.
It's a good question. You know what? This question I've actually listened to different police departments from different states. Even Sheriff Wiles addressed this issue, and the overwhelming response is that if people don't want to pay more in taxes, then don't make the police department do more work. Now, this pretty much comes down to a tax issue. A lot of people here in favor of lower taxes, smaller government. Well, this is counterintuitive to that. By putting more work on the police department, you're going to effectively have to pay overtime to police officers. You're going to use facilities that are currently already overpopulated, the city jail, the annex, prison, and you're going to be using resources that we really just don't have. Now, that being said, okay, law violators is a different issue. Now, if the city comes together and says, look, we don't mind paying more in taxes because this is about our safety, well, then that's something that has to be decided by the voters. It can't be somebody like me speaking for all of you, okay? If the general population says, look, we don't want higher taxes, but for this issue, I don't mind paying more. If that seems to be the consensus of the city of El Paso and law violators, let me repeat that. Law violators are subject to ask for immigration, then that's something that I can't argue with you. I'm not here to put forth my agenda to the city of El Paso. I'm here to listen to all of you. So if the city of El Paso says, hey, I don't mind tightening my belt a little bit, you know, for the greater cause of public safety. I don't mind paying a little bit more in taxes